that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Radio.
Well, I want to start off by saying really my objective of today's debate is really not to try to convince Cy that God does not exist. That would be impossible based upon, I didn't even really know who Cy was until, I found out I was going to be conversing with him today. And I've been watching his videos, and I kind of know the strategy that he uses as far as talking about God. And I say it's a strategy because personally, the whole world of presuppositional arguments, in my opinion, is really a lot of wordplay, and it doesn't have evidence behind it. It's more, explaining words and trying to play on different types of words. So I'm going to indulge Cy today, though, and I'm going to go into that world, and it'll be fun. It'll be entertaining for everyone. And really, the reason I agreed to do any of these things, and when I talk on I don't usually talk even in private messages with theists, because it's very hard. You can't debate someone who, Cy believes that his knowledge comes from God, and he has a divine revelation. Well, somebody who says I have a divine revelation from God that tells me that God exists, I could fly them to every single corner of the universe and, in a spaceship and show no God, and it's not going to change their mind. So, however, as I understand what Cy does. Cy wants, in Cy's world, he believes that he's saving people, or that God saves people, or that he's spreading the word of his religion. And if that's what he believes is the right thing to do, then that's why he does it. But I feel bad for Cy, because I feel he's losing. He's fighting a losing battle. Because after all is said and done, and even if Cy was to convince everyone in the world that he had this amazing argument for God's existence, he still loses. And the main reason is because the science and evidence exist, and they are more powerful than presuppositional arguments. It's just kind of how it goes. Cy has to be the Johnny Cochran of theology. He knows that he's defending a losing case, but he has to make his point. And and he can actually do it. He can win debates if as long as he does three things. The first thing he's got to do is he's got to get you as a listener to doubt all the evidence that there is for the non-existence of God. Well, you have to doubt all the evidence. Then he has to discredit the witnesses, the people who are giving the counter evidence, and then he has to create a false dichotomy that, see, if they're wrong, I must be right. And he's very good at doing this when he talks to people. And he may even feel that he wins debates with this strategy, but when people leave the debate, and reality comes back around, they have a hard time believing the stories of the Bible, because of evidence. Okay, what do I mean? Tonight we're not going to, Cy's not going to want to talk about the actual science of the Bible. We're not going to talk about talking snakes. He probably doesn't want to talk about the impossibility of Noah's flood or the Tower of Babel and versus actual linguistics. We're not going to talk about the authorship of the Bible and the contradictions of all the eyewitness accounts and all that kind of stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because that is a losing argument. Okay, so since that's a losing argument, Cy doesn't want to argue those things. Because his reasoning for that is that, well, it puts us, I've heard him say a number of times, it puts us in judgment of God's word by arguing the evidence. Well, last time I did any debates, and I haven't done a debate in a while, but all debates put other people in the judgment seat. Okay, every time Cy agrees to a debate or makes a video or does anything to tell people that don't agree with him, he's putting other people in the judgment seat, and he knows that. I've seen some of his videos where he hangs up in 30 seconds. so he feels that the word games, the presuppositional arguments, give him a better opportunity to convince you rather than the actual evidence does. And I can prove this. I bet tomorrow if something in the Bible came true, okay, every Christian would throw away presuppositional arguments out the window, and they would be parading around their talking snake, okay, that says, look, the snake talks and it tells us the Bible is true, and that would be much, much stronger than whatever we're going to talk about tonight. And so, I said he's got to do three things. Well, the first thing is he's going to get rid of that evidence. Second thing he's going to do is try to discredit the witnesses. And, so I love asking people, could it be possible that everything that you know could be wrong? Well, he knows that most atheists want to be intellectually honest, and so they go ahead and say, yes, that's possible that everything I know could be wrong. Because as a truth seeker, if you're seeking truth, you have to accept the fact that maybe everything that you know is wrong. If you don't accept that fact that it might be wrong, then you're not seeking truth. You know the truth. How can you seek something that you already know if you can't be wrong? So that's that. So Sai turns around and asserts that, well, he knows the truth with absolute certainty because God has revealed it to him. So who is, as a listener, who am I going to listen to more? The person who just admitted that they potentially might not know everything, or everything that they know might be wrong, or the person who's standing there saying with absolute certainty, I know this? And it's just confidence. But, assertions made confidently are still assertions. They're not. You can assert whatever you want, but you need something to back it up. So tonight, I want everyone in the audience to please tell me how and when Sai demonstrates why his assertion that God reveals himself to be true is correct. And I said the last thing is the false dichotomy. And as far as that goes, Sai puts a lot of pressure on atheists, because we have to argue in his world. We have to stay in presuppositional. We don't go into evidence. And then, he spends a lot of time trying to prove that your worldview is wrong. So, therefore, mine is right. So the Bible has to be true because you don't have a correct worldview. And again, that's one thing being wrong doesn't make the other thing right. And I'm not even going to say that we're wrong. See, atheists, again, as I said, are truth-seeking. So what do I believe? And so, because we're going to have a conversation tonight, we're going to have a discussion, so I want Ty to know what I actually believe so he's able to question my thoughts. And so in order to have a discussion, you have to be using the same words and definitions. So we're going to talk about the word knowledge. Knowledge is very important in these arguments. And, my definition of knowledge and the way I use the word is the self-attesting truth, meaning it's right because there is no possible way for it to be wrong. No scenario exists that it could be false. And so according to that definition, we know with certainty that I exist. And I would claim that is all I know. Okay, I know I exist because I have that knowledge. It's a self-attesting. In order for me not to, I can't think and not exist. And so that is the only thing that I know as far as it goes. So when I'm asked later on, could everything possibly be wrong? My answer is no. I know I exist because in order for me to think that it could be wrong, I'd have to exist for it to be wrong. So that's that. Now, anything after that is, in my worldview, is a belief. I am an atheist. An atheist means that I do not believe that a God exists. Sai is a theist, which means that he believes a God exists. He does not know this. He believes it very strongly. He believes it so strongly. He believes it as strongly as I believe that God does not exist. So the best way for me to describe my beliefs is if you were to mentally draw, I would say like a Cartesian plane in your mind, right? You have the x-axis and you have the y-axis, right? And the x-axis is evidence, and the y-axis would be refutation of evidence, so the refuting of evidence, okay? And then I want you to imagine a curved line, okay, that goes out with two asymptotes. One goes out on the x-axis and one goes out on the y-axis. Right? Asymptote means it gets closer to the line, but it never actually hits the line. Well, that line is what I call belief. And so when somebody makes a truth claim, then I place it on my belief line. Okay, Sai says to me, hello, my name is Sai. Bam, truth claim. Okay. Now, if somebody else comes up and says, hey, Sai, what's up? And, I go, okay. Now, I move that a little bit closer on my belief line as closer to knowledge. If 100 people come up and go up to Sai and say, hey, what's up, Sai? Then I move it even closer to my knowledge claim. But it will never become knowledge. Even if every single person on earth came up to and said, hey, what's up to Sai, he could come to me one day and say, look, I paid all these people off, and my name's not really Cy. Okay? And the same thing is, if he told me his name was Cy, and somebody came up to me and said, hey, or came up to Cy and said, hey, Jim, what's up? Well, I would start moving him up the y-axis and start disbelieving the fact that his name is actually Cy. So I'm almost out of time, so I'll just say that's my idea is that at the end, I'm not going to have any knowledge other.
Okay, 10 minutes is up. The number is 877-280-9681. That's 877-280-9681. For those of you that just joined in, the title of the show is called Does God Exist? My two special guests is Matthew and Cy 10 Bruggencate. And right now I'm going to give Cy his 10 minutes for his opening statement. And you can go ahead.
Great, thanks, Al. Actually, I had agreed to a 5-minute opening statements, but since he's already gone on for 10, I'm going to give the audience a break. I'm only going on for about 3 minutes. I'd like to wish everybody a good evening. I'd like to say hi to Matthew. It's nice to finally meet him. It's almost like I know him since I've gone through most of his videos on YouTube. But I'd like to thank Sal for arranging this debate. I'd like to thank Matthew for engaging me. And I'd like to thank the listeners for taking out the time to listen to this debate. I'd also like to thank my friends and family for their prayers, and I'd like to thank the Lord Jesus Christ for allowing this debate to take place. Now, tonight, we're debating the existence of God. Matthew denies belief in God, and I profess belief in God. Now, Matthew does not make the positive claim that there is no God. He merely states that he lacks belief in God. He rightly criticizes those who would demand that he prove that there is no God, as it's impossible to prove a universal negative. I therefore will not ask Matthew to prove that there is no God. His form of atheism, however, does come with the implied positive claim that things can be known without God. Now, it's my position that the proof that God exists is that without him, you couldn't know anything, and that Matthew's pre-commitment to knowledge exposes his pre-commitment to God. Now, why is that? Why is God necessary for knowledge? Well, quite simply, if you don't know everything, or have revelation from somebody who does know everything, what you don't know could contradict what you think you know. Again, if you don't know everything, or have revelation from someone who does, what you don't know could contradict what you think you know. So once again, the proof that God exists is that without him, you couldn't know anything. Now, despite Matthew's claim to not know anything apart from his existence, the knowledge claims he makes on his YouTube videos expose his inconsistency with that claim, and therefore exposes his pre-commitment to God. In one of his videos, Matthew states, "The point of debate is to prove the other person wrong." But how can one prove anything or know anything to be wrong without knowledge? Matthew's very presence at this debate tonight exposes his pre-commitment to knowledge, and therefore his pre-commitment to God. Matthew knows that God exists, just as it says in the first chapter of Romans. Now, if Matthew wishes to continue to deny knowledge, then this debate is over, as again, debates presuppose knowing things. If he wishes to now claim that he can know things apart from God, then the burden is on him to support that claim, as I agree with him when he writes, "The burden of proof always falls on the person making the claim." Now, folks, Proverbs 1:7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge." Knowledge presupposes God. Debate presupposes knowledge. Just by showing up here tonight, Matthew has conceded the debate. Thank you.
Okay, once again, the number is 877-280-9681. I'm going to now have the one-on-one conversation begin. I'm going to open up Matthew's phone line, and I'm going to ask the listening audience to hold off on your questions for a little bit, but later on you can just press the number 1, and I'll add you into the conversation. I'm going to let Matthew start the conversation, so you can speak directly to Cy when you're ready.
Okay. Well, Cy, you said that my videos talk about offering knowledge or making knowledge claims, and why would anything that I say be a knowledge claim? It's not a claim of knowledge. It is a claim of evidence. It's an evidential claim. Like here is evidence of backing up my position. So it's not a knowledge claim. The only knowledge that I have is that I exist. But we have evidence. We have things that exist that we can see, that we can feel, that we can touch, that are evidence, and we're going to give that evidence. We don't. Now, is it true that if I say here I have footprints, that evidence might be wrong? Sure, but then we have what's called collaborating evidence. We have other evidence. We have more things that we put together. These are not knowledge claims. They're evidence to make a case of your point, to make it closer to belief or closer to knowledge. There is no way you're going to have complete knowledge of anything, no matter how much evidence you actually present. So I'm curious to know what your take is on that.
Well, a number of times in your opening statement and on your videos, you talk about truth. And when you talk about truth, you say one of the comments, it said, "There is no my truth, there is the truth." So you obviously believe in an absolute truth. You don't believe in a relative truth, because that's, of course, asinine. But one thing I've noticed on your videos, you never have defined what is truth. So I was wondering if you could do that for me today. What is truth?
Truth is what would exist outside of us.
So you would agree then that you have a correspondence theory of truth, that you would say truth is what corresponds to reality, or truth is that which is real.
Yes, and it's the challenging part about truth, though. It's the same thing about knowledge. Like, yes, there is an outside world of us that we would call truth, but the problem is measuring it and finding it and seeing it. Because, for example, something that's solid, to me, the truth of it is that it's solid. To something that's a bug or something that could go through that, or a neutrino could go through that, we wouldn't see that as solid. It's not solid to them. So there is also the problem of using our words, because our words, we attribute all the words and the logic and the words that we use, we attribute to our reality, not all reality. So it's very hard to come up with what is actual truth, because, yes, it is true that this is hard, but to a neutrino, it's not.
Right. Okay, but generally you would say truth is what's real. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. Now, on your videos, you have said that the only thing you know for certain is that you exist, and later on in the show I'll be happy to expose why you can't even know that you exist according to your worldview. However, since you agree that truth is that which corresponds to reality, and since you have stated that you can only know for certain that you exist, how can you know what's real?
How can I know what's real? What's your definition of real?
The thing is, you're saying that
truth and real
is that which corresponds to reality, and what's real is what actually is. So how do you know, according to your worldview, what actually is the case?
I don't know. What I do is I try to find belief. I have to look at evidence to find out what's real. And the more collaborating evidence than there possibly is. The biggest collaborating evidence I could possibly have is self-knowledge. But I can't have self-knowledge of everything.
However, since you can only know that you exist, you cannot know what's real, so you can't know what's true. So you cannot seek truth.
Oh, you can seek something without it being there.
Okay, well, why don't you explain to me how you can ever know anything to be true, according to your worldview, since it's your claim that you can only know that you exist? Well,
how could I know anything is true? I can't. Yeah. I can know what I can know what I. That's why I call it an asymptote, because the asymptote never reaches. I'm never going to know.
Is that true?
It's a seeking. I know. The only thing I will know is that I exist, and when I stop existing, then I will stop knowing that. Everything else is just a belief, and I'm
is
going to come as
true?
close to it as possibly I can.
Is it true that everything else is a belief?
Everything else would be my beliefs. Yes. Well, there could be a real world out there. There is a true real world outside of me. I would believe
Is it true that there's a real world outside of you?
I would believe that, yes.
Well, no, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, is it true that there's
I don't know.
The thing is, because you're making...
Again, you're asking me to know. You're asking me to know these things.
Okay. Is it true that you don't know?
You're asking me to to say I know something that I can't possibly know. The only thing I will know, the only thing I will concede to know, is that I exist.
Is it true that that's the only thing you'll concede?
No, because I might change that in the future.
See, that's right. See, and that's the problem. When you say that you can only know one thing to be true, and people can look at your videos, you make all sorts of truth and knowledge claims. You talk about logical absolutes.
Again, because I'm not talking in a presumption. I'm not talking in a forum that we are speaking right now.
Is that true?
When I say no to someone who went on the street, we're not talking. I'm not talking about I know. If I say I know my mom is downstairs, I don't. I'm not. They're not going to ask me how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? Is it possible that she could not be? That's not the conversation we're having at that point.
That's right. They won't challenge your presuppositions, but I will challenge your presuppositions.
Okay. Well, then
because the thing is, you're living in God's world.
Hold on, Matthew. Let him speak.
You're living in God's world, and you're assuming knowledge that you cannot justify without God. Now, anybody could look at your videos, and you could say, well, on those videos I make knowledge claims, but I don't really mean them. See, and that's the thing, because you cannot live in this world and deny knowledge. You make knowledge claims, but you cannot account for them without God.
No. That is an assertion.
Right.
You're just saying that.
Okay.
You're just saying, well, you need to have a God in order to do this, and that just I could say I can make up anything and say, well, yeah, you need to not have God in order to have knowledge. What's the difference between your assertion and my assertion?
Well, the thing is, you have admitted on your videos that the only thing you can know is that you exist. Now, before we go too much further, I'd like to actually address that claim, because when Matthew has said, "I know that I exist," what he's referring to is René Descartes' syllogism. Would that be fair, Matthew?
He said it first, but I would have thought of that.
Right, and what he said was, "I think, therefore I am." And that's what you're saying is how you can know that you exist because you think. Is that correct?
I'm saying that, yes, because of the logic that he used, that if everything was stripped away and I was being confused by everything, or I was being deceived, I should say, then
well, even in that very
statement, I cannot be deceived about is that I exist.
Right. Well, even in that very statement, you're assuming things that you cannot account for in your worldview, like logic. But let me break down René Descartes' syllogism for you. It was actually an atheistic philosopher, Bertrand Russell, who showed that René Descartes' syllogism was begging the question, that it was a logical fallacy. And I'm going to point that out to you because the first premise in René Descartes' syllogism is I think. And his second premise is, in order to think, I must exist. And his conclusion is, therefore I exist. Now the problem is the conclusion, therefore I exist, is assumed in the first premise, I think. You see, in order to not beg the question, the first premise cannot be I think, because then you're already assuming existence. The first premise must be there is thinking. And you cannot get from there is thinking, you cannot get from there is thinking to I exist. So even your claim that you can know for certain that you exist is begging the question because you are assuming that you exist in the proof.
Okay. So in your worldview, thinking and existing are the exact same thing?
No, what I'm saying is that you cannot even account for the one knowledge claim that you do make, the thing that you know for certain. It was an atheistic philosopher who pointed out that it was a logical fallacy. I
understand that, but you're saying the logical fallacy is that by saying that I exist, that you're attacking the first premise that I think, and that is it's a premise saying that I am. In order to even do the syllogism in the first place, you have to be thinking.
No, there must be thinking, but to apply a personhood to that is to beg the question. Because I'm asking you to prove that you exist, and you're saying, well, I'm thinking. You're assuming that you're thinking. You could say there's random thoughts in the ether. To say that, you attribute personhood to that, for all you know, there could be thoughts in a computer somehow. That there is no personality.
So what is your definition of I?
What is... Well, I...
Because you're telling me that I'm assuming I. Well, what would then be I?
Well, I would be the
if it's just
identity.
Random thoughts in the ether,
right?
Then it's what you're saying that my I is wrong. So what is wrong?
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying you can't account for it. I'm saying you're assuming
I can account
personal.
for it because the
how do you know you exist?
What I am is thinking.
How do you know it's you that's thinking? It's not just random thoughts in the ether.
Because even if it's random thoughts in the ether, the thoughts are I am my thoughts.
How do you know that?
Because my thoughts exist. If they didn't exist, then there would be no I.
Well, no, but the thing is, now you understand.
That's the point of the proof.
No, but the thing is, it's not a proof, because you cannot say that there's not just random thoughts. You're attributing them to a personhood. You're saying, I think.
Thoughts. What is the difference between random thoughts and my thoughts?
Because there's no personality with them. You're assuming a personality when you say, I think. It's begging the question. So the thing is, that's what I'm saying, that even in the one knowledge claim that you do make, I'm showing you that it's a... Hang on, let me finish. I'm saying that even in the one knowledge claim you do make, it's a logical fallacy. But even for the purpose of this discussion, I'll grant that. I'll grant that you can know that you exist. However, if you could be wrong about everything else, then you can't know anything else. And the moment you open your mouth, you deny that very claim. You deny that you can only know one thing because you make knowledge claims about other things. You say there's such things as logic, and you hold me to laws of logic.
That's not true, because my sounds, the words that I'm saying, are not the other things. They are representations of other things.
Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know that?
If I hold up a pack of matches, if you were in Buddha or Buddhism or Zen philosophy, all right, and the teacher walks in, they hold up a pack of matches, and they say, "What is this?" And you know what people say? They go, "It's a pack of matches." And the Zen master says, "That's just sounds. You just made sounds. A pack of matches. That is not what this is. If you want to know what this is," and they'll throw it at you. That's what that is.
Is that true, Matthew?
Yes, that's what that is.
See,
that is
now what you're doing is
outside of my sounds. My sounds are just sounds. But
you realize what you're doing.
Go ahead.
You realize what you're doing. You're making knowledge claims other than the one thing that you've claimed to know, and that you exist. You say, well, it's true that there's matter. Well, how do you know that? How do you know anything? How do you know that when you open your mouth, the sounds that you're going to utter are coherent? On what basis do you claim that?
I don't know that. I believe it.
Do you know that you believe
it? The sounds that I'm making they might come out. They would be incoherent to someone who didn't speak English. Of course, they're incoherent to those people. So they might be incoherent to even me. But my thoughts are who I am, and so everything else is just belief. I don't consider my hands me. I don't consider moving or talking on the phone as me. My thoughts are me. Not random thoughts. I mean, all my thoughts, and you say random thoughts, all my thoughts are random.
Well, I didn't say anything about random thoughts, actually.
I think they follow a logical procession, but that doesn't mean they do.
Okay, so other than your existence, you could be wrong about everything you claim to know. That's correct, right?
Other than my existence, yes.
Okay. So whenever you make a knowledge claim other than your existence, you could be wrong about that, correct?
I don't make any knowledge claims, but sure.
Do you know that? Do you know that you don't make any knowledge claims?
Do I know that I don't make knowledge claims?
Yes.
Let me think about that. Do I know that I don't make knowledge claims? No, I believe I don't do that.
Do you know that you believe it?
No. I just believe it. I know that I exist. That's it. I don't know about anything else. Everything else, because the claims that I'm making are sounds.
Do you know that you don't know anything else?
That you are picking up, but I don't know if you're hearing them. I don't know how they're coming out. I don't know how they're perceived.
Do you know that you don't know anything else?
No. I don't know anything other than I exist.
So it's possible that you know other things.
I'm not conceding anything other than I know I do not exist. So every more
question you know that you're not conceding anything else?
How do you? I mean, I could turn it around. How do you know that your God exists? I know I exist based upon my personal thinking. It's a self-attesting thought. God is an outside thing that you're saying is revealing something to you.
Do you know that God is an outside thing?
Do you? Is God? Are you God?
Well, what I'm saying is that I have a worldview in which knowledge makes sense. You have a worldview in...
Hold on, Matthew.
I'm sorry.
You have a worldview in which you claim to only know one thing, and you make knowledge claims about my worldview. See, now that's the problem with atheism, because you'd be surprised how many people, have said, I've asked them the question, could you be wrong about everything you claim to know? And they say yes. And the very next thing out of their mouth is they say, well, so can you. But the problem is, if you could be wrong about everything you claim to know, you can't make knowledge claims about anybody else. And the very next thing out of their mouth is, so can you. My question is, well, how do you know that? And that's the problem. You see, hang on, let me finish. Debates presuppose knowledge. And, you admitted in one of your videos that the purpose of debates is to prove the other person wrong. But proof and wrongness don't make sense in your worldview, because the only thing that you can know according to your own worldview is that you exist. So when you enter into a debate, you assume knowledge about truth, about logic, about proof, about things that you cannot account for according to your worldview. So when you enter into this debate, you're actually borrowing from my worldview when you do that.
Sorry.
Matthew, before you answer, let me just make a brief announcement. If you want to ask any questions, listening audience, if you want to ask any questions, you can dial in now, 877-280-9681. That's 877-280-9681. Press the number 1, and I'll add you into the conversation. All right, go ahead, Matthew.
All right. Five birds are on a wire. 3 of them decide to fly away. How many birds are left?
Well, Matthew, how do you know 5 birds are on a wire?
I'm asking you a question.
I realize that you're asking me a question, but you realize that when you ask me questions...
Hypothetically. No, I'm not saying I know it. I believe there are 5 birds on a wire. Hopefully you do too. And 2 of them decide to fly away. I changed it, made 2. How many are left on the wire?
Pizza runs higher than sleep.
It's going to be a hard discussion if you don't even want to answer any of my questions, but I have to answer all of yours.
No, what I'm saying is that
you have badgered me with my no questions all the way to the point where I am thinking and not random thoughts in ether, and I asked you one question and you can't answer.
No, I answered your question. I said pizza runs higher than sleep.
Well, great. Well, so my point being is I know because I knew. How about that? Just like you know because you know that God reveals to you because you know it and you know it and you know it.
So you're saying that you know things.
That's not a good way to get to a discussion, a point of discussion.
So you're saying that you know things other than your existence now.
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
I know that I exist because I know it.
Now,
I don't borrow from your world belief as far as knowledge, because I am not saying claims of knowledge. I am making claims of evidence.
Could you be wrong about that?
Evidence of something.
Could you be wrong about that?
I believe I'm not.
And that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if you could be wrong.
Well, you don't seem to answer my question, so I'm going to answer randomly the question.
No, I did answer your question. Now, Matthew, you asked me the question.
And I just answered yours.
Hang on 1 second. Let me finish.
One at a time.
Let me explain what happened there. Because you asked me a question about birds on a wire, and my answer was pizza runs higher than sleep. And you said I didn't answer your question. Now, what made you think that I did not answer your question?
Because you didn't relate to the question that I asked.
Well, how do you know that?
Don't know it. I believe it because I heard the words. I believe that you said words, and I believe that I heard them, and I believe they were English, and therefore I believe that I told you that that you weren't answering my question.
Right,
These are all beliefs, they're not knowledges. I could be brain of that, and all this conversation is not really happening. But I know that I'm a thought somewhere.
But it's possible that my answer was a coherent answer. Is that correct?
Of course, it's possible.
Okay, I appreciate that.
All right, gentlemen, I think we have a question here. Hold on for a second. This is a Skype caller. Lee Castle, you're live on Debate Talk View. You have a question or a comment?
Hi, it's Larry Castle, and a question for Matthew. Matthew, I'm not familiar with the content you've got on YouTube, so I apologize. I don't know what your answer would be.
It's not a big YouTube channel.
Okay. I was just wondering, it sounds like from the description of it that your videos are from an atheist perspective and identifying what you see as flaws with theism or a Christian perspective. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
So if you could, since I'm not familiar with the content on your channels, identify what you see as probably the most common issue with a Christian perspective or view that you identify in your videos. If I had a chance to watch through your videos, what would I come away with?
Most of my videos are responses to, I watch a lot of YouTube. I'm a YouTube fan. So I watch a lot of YouTube, and when I hear, most of my content is just me getting upset at an argument and refuting the argument or talking about the argument of other people. I don't actually, I mean, I think I have a couple of videos maybe defining the terminology when I have conversations with people so we could be on the same page. My major, just so I understand your question is what are my major issues with theists, or what do I feel is the biggest problem?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is what would you say are the most common problems you have with Christianity as a view or a thought system?
Okay, yeah. I have no problems with, again, as I talked about my worldview and beliefs, I have no problems with people's beliefs. You know, as I said in the beginning, Sai should not be, as Sai said, I lost the argument by coming in on the debating. I feel that he's lost the argument by debating in his own worldview because he's giving evidence. He's giving evidence by with the presuppositional arguments, or I can't say the word, is an argument. It's evidence. It's giving evidence. But my issue is the fact that when people take their religion and impose it onto other people, that's my biggest, I guess, my biggest issue. You won't see any videos on Jewish people on my account, because Jewish people just believe that they are the chosen ones and they kind of leave everybody else alone. I get very scared when religion is put into, like the classrooms, and they try to get rid of evolution, and they try to talk about gay rights, and those types of things. Those are the reasons. Those are the things that I don't know if I answered your question as what my issues are, or if what my biggest problem.
Yeah, I think kind of. I was just curious. I tend to agree. I listen to and read a lot of the material that Sai has published, and find it very convincing and very helpful. But I was wondering, just in contrast, then what you would see as the biggest problems you have with a Christian worldview. The main reason, I'll tell you, that my motivation behind asking it was I'm a fan like you of YouTube. I spend a lot of time watching videos from both sides, and I really enjoy discussing with people from both sides on YouTube. And most frequently, the thing that people will raise to me as a criticism is they would say that Christianity's biggest flaw is that it relies on they'll use terms like blind faith or beliefs as opposed to facts and evidence. And in light of the conversation between you and Sai about what might be known, what is knowledge, and what's possible, I just wondered what you would name as the biggest flaw with Christianity, if it was the same as what I encounter so often. Or...
I will say that faith, and I don't want to take up, I don't want to dominate everything on one side to get his sense in too. But as far as my faith, when I talk about my curve, okay, as far as the X and Y axis, the Y axis being refuting evidence, and the highest up you can go, to as far as evidence that I can't refute is faith. I believe faith is the belief in something without any evidence. That's my definition of faith. When someone's like, well, I have no evidence whatsoever, but I have to have faith. Well, so that to me is something that you should, because you can't have a society based on faith only. It wouldn't work.
But I think that's what's confusing me about what I heard you describe as your view, though, because it sounds like, in essence, you're saying that everything you might know is basically faith.
Yeah, hold on. Let me Sai jump in. Sai, you want to add something to this? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a very good point, Larry. Good to hear from you. Now, of course, in his response, he's made many knowledge claims. One of them, I'll just pick out the last one since it's the last one I remember, but he said, you can't have a society based on faith. Now, that's a knowledge claim. That's not a belief claim, because he's saying you can't have something. Now, he could say, well, I really don't believe that you could have a society based on faith, but that's not what he says. He says you can't have a society based on faith. That's a knowledge claim. And my question is, could you be wrong about that?
Of course I could be wrong on that.
So you cannot say
before
you
I make
can't.
Every statement from now on, here, let me just make a qualifier, all right? Everything other than me saying, I know I exist, I want to put in there, I believe, before every statement I make. So there's no more, you can't call them knowledge claims.
Do you know that you can't call them
knowledge of any of that stuff? How could I have knowledge that society couldn't believe? That's obviously nobody walks around and talks that way.
Okay, you know that nobody
talk. I believe that my shoes are being put on my feet. I'm just going to say I'm putting my shoes on my feet.
But when
I
you
don't
say
have
nobody,
knowledge of that.
When you say nobody walks around talking that way, you're making a knowledge claim. See, that's
I
the problem.
believe that nobody says that.
Do you know that you believe that?
I made a qualifier already.
Yeah.
Okay,
let me ask you this question.
And then anytime you ask me, how do I know that I said that I believe that too.
Now, a number of times you've said that you refute arguments on your channel, correct?
Correct.
So
I believe I do that.
Well, in order to refute arguments, that's what you do. You believe that you refute arguments. In order to refute arguments, would you not say that these arguments would have to be false?
No, I'm going to give evidence of the contrary. That's what refuting is.
But the thing is, when you refute arguments,
that's what they're doing. They're both giving arguments, and one is trying to refute the other one.
Yeah, but when you refute an argument, what are you doing?
You are giving evidence of the contrary.
Right. Okay, but that's not refuting an argument. Refuting an argument is proving the argument false. Would you not admit that?
No, because you already told me in the beginning you can't disprove. If you make an argument, if you take me to court and say I did something, all I can do is refute all your evidence and give you as much evidence as possible that I wasn't there. But there's no way I could possibly make you know I wasn't there because I can't give all the evidence in the entire world plus the fact that make you there.
Okay, so we're agreed that you do not refute arguments on your YouTube channel.
If your definition, again, you're talking about definition, so if your definition of refute is disprove, then I would agree.
Okay, so you don't refute arguments.
If my definition of refute is giving counter arguments. Okay,
and so when you say that other arguments are crazy, when you say other arguments are stupid, when you call other people idiotic, when you call them irrational, you can't justify any of those claims according to your worldview, correct?
Those are my beliefs.
You're just talking about personal opinion.
Yes, my beliefs can't be anybody else's opinion.
So you're just sharing your personal opinion on your YouTube channel. You're not refuting anybody. So when you say...
I'm sharing my beliefs, yes.
Right.
At that moment, when I'm doing it.
Okay, so when you...
Hold on for a second. I think Larry has another question.
Okay,
Larry, you want to... Larry, you have a question, right?
Larry. Sorry, I had my mic muted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, I didn't actually mean to interject and interrupt the conversation. I was typing a question on the chat, but my question was: isn't evidence simply a series of knowledge claims that are building a case for a specific knowledge claim?
No, because
I would agree with you, Larry. That's exactly what evidence is.
No, of course you guys would agree with each other, but a knowledge claim, again, if you're going to keep using your definition of knowledge, you're saying everything that anybody says, they are making a knowledge claim. And I'm saying they are not. I'm saying everything that people say is a belief. They are expressing their belief.
Do you know that that's not what evidence is?
I know I exist. I believe that's not what evidence is.
So when Larry says that evidence is a number of knowledge claims, you can't say that's wrong.
Say that again.
When Larry says
I want to be fair. I don't want to just keep saying that I believe because I want to be fair.
When Larry says that evidence is a number of knowledge claims, and you say no, you can't say no. You can say, well, I don't believe it is. But when you say no,
yes, I don't believe that is the correct answer.
Right, but it could be as far as you know.
Because we live in a society where we have to interject with other people.
Could you be wrong about that?
I can't just walk around because with a knowledge of me and saying I know. And I know all the other atheists that are listening right now are like, well, stop being on the defensive with this because you're just going to keep going, how do I know? And of course you're supposed to turn around and say, look, how do you know? And I understand that you're just going to say like God, that assertion and as I said in my opening comment, is at the end of the day, your assertion that God reveals things to you is yours. It's just an assertion.
Could you be wrong about that?
And the rest of us, all the rest of us, are not going to sit around and go, hey, you know what? How do I know that you know that you're making? Oh, you just said something that's not that's a knowledge claim. And how do you know that's a knowledge claim? We have to live. We're going to live our lives. And as far as it goes, at some point, I'm not going to talk about my knowledge. I'm going to talk about my belief. My beliefs on things like gravity are really close to knowledge. How do I know that? Because I believe that. Because there's a lot of evidence for that.
Okay, let me ask you this question then. You say that your beliefs are close to knowledge. So when you have beliefs that come close to knowledge, first of all, you could be wrong about that, but you'd admit that you are employing.
You're wrong with everything.
Hang on a second. You admit that you're employing your reasoning. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how do you know that your reasoning is valid?
How do I know that my reasoning is valid?
Right, about anything.
How do I know this? I don't know this.
Right. So
all I know is I exist.
That's right. So you can't know that your reasoning about anything is valid.
No, because reasoning is not valid. Reasoning and logic are ways that are different. Just like me seeing something, reasoning is just another way that we apply to the world. Like,
could you be wrong about that?
Talk about A equals A. Okay? Well, in quantum physics, it's different. Our logic is not correct in those things. And by the way, things that were revealed to you by your God can turn out to be wrong too, because they are all the time. We show that.
Could you be wrong about that?
I believe I could be, but
see, that's the problem.
But I don't think I am.
So when you say that you can come close to knowledge, you're employing your reasoning, but you've admitted that you don't know if your reasoning's valid. So you can't come close to knowledge. You can't know anything to any degree.
Again,
not even
you're talking about my beliefs. Every time you say, do you know, I'm going to say it's my belief.
Hold on. Let them get it all out, one at a time.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But the thing is, when you say that you're employing your reasoning, even to come to beliefs, you would say that you're employing your reasoning in order to come to beliefs.
I would say I believe my reasoning is correct.
Okay, but the thing is, in order to come to beliefs, are you saying that you do that without reasoning?
No, I believe my reasoning is correct.
Right. So, but when you come to beliefs about anything, you employ your reasoning, correct?
No, I have my beliefs first. My beliefs are my thinking, all thought is beliefs.
Okay, so your beliefs are irrational. They're without reason.
My beliefs come from me. So, yeah, they can be rational or irrational. My beliefs are the cause of rationality. We came up with logic and reasoning and math based out of our thoughts. Two doesn't exist in the universe. It's a thought. It's a number. It's a sound that we came up with, and that means what we apply to two things in the universe.
Well, okay, let's get back to
exist.
You're saying that you're not making knowledge claims, you're only making belief claims. But in order to make belief claims, you're saying you're not employing your reasoning. So your bases are irrational, unreasoned beliefs. Would you admit that?
No, they're not irrational, because irration comes from my beliefs, and my beliefs are who I am.
If they're not irrational, then they're reasoned, correct?
What's your
definition? That's what irrational is, without reason. Irrational. That's what they are. So if you're saying that your beliefs do not employ reason...
if you're saying that they follow, if you're going to say that my beliefs come from who I am, then to follow, and they come up with reasons. Reasons are, again, reasons of my beliefs. When I believe something, I have come up with reasons. Like, I have this belief if I'm going to walk into the wall, if it's going to hurt. So if I hurt, then I now have a reason not to walk into the wall anymore.
Yeah, I'm sorry, gentlemen. We have another caller, actually. I just want to, add him in. We're winding down to the last 7 minutes of the show. If you have any questions, dial the number 877-280-9681. Press the number 1, and we'll add you to the conversation. We have another caller right now, 972. You're live on Debate Talk Radio. You have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I have a question for Matthew. This is Victor, by the way. Whenever you said something earlier about, you don't like it when Christians push their beliefs on other people, but doesn't atheist, or in at least the way you word it, doesn't atheism push their belief, with your YouTube channel and, whatever you believe? Aren't you pretty much evangelizing from the other side?
Okay. My answer to that is actually said in a couple of my videos. Is when someone imposes something on you, you responding to that is not evangelizing. It's I have a video on Steve Harvey where he calls all atheists immoral people. So my video says, "How dare you?" Okay, called me immoral, and when your beliefs are this, and this, based upon your Bible, and then the Christian turns around and says, "Well, how dare you say that to me?" And takes the, Neil Tyson deGrasse said it best, that there are no scientists going to churches saying, we need both sides of evolution. We need both sides taught. There are no scientists going to church to say that. The churches are going into the science class and saying, this is what you should teach. It's not the other way around. If you want to believe what you want to believe it, as long as it doesn't impose on me. If it imposes on me, then I have the right to stand up for myself and for everyone. I don't want you don't have to be an atheist.
Right, so your whole thing with atheism, you're not trying to spread atheism, is that what you're saying?
That's why you don't have to be an atheist. No, not at all. I think it's the right, and by the way, everything that I'm saying right now, I want to qualify with I believe, okay? So, because everything I'm saying is not a knowledge statement, other than the fact that I know I exist. However, when I'm talking to, not in this, in that context, I mean, again, if you want to have a Christmas tree, you want to have a Christmas tree in your house, great. You want to put a Christmas tree in front of the White House, well, that represents me, and that, therefore, I would be against that.
Yeah, Si, I'm going to let you jump in. Do you believe Matt is actually promoting atheism with his channel? Si?
Well, I've watched his videos, and I would say he's not promoting atheism. He's promoting nonsense. Because, the thing is, he says that the only thing that he can know for certain is that he exists. I've showed, how that's not the case. So when he goes on his channel and he makes all these knowledge claims, he says, well, he does it on his channel. He won't do it here with me. But the thing is, this translates to what he does in the real world. He talks about beliefs, and he says his beliefs are not reasoned, and then he says that they're rational. He goes back and forth. Now, I know that we don't have a lot of time left in this show, but that's what I want to tell people who are listening to this program right now, that Jesus Christ did not only die to save souls for eternity, he died to save reasoning now. Now, I realize that Matthew, until he repents, he's not going to be able to see the folly of his worldview, the folly of his claims, but I urge, and I really hope that he does do that, because there's no hope in this world, in the next, going through the world with such an inconsistent worldview, and I really hope that he repents and come to know the peace which passes all understanding through salvation in Jesus Christ.
And Matthew, I'll give you your final thoughts.
That is my problem with Christians. Okay, so I need to repent. I'm a bad person. If I do not repent, I'm eternal damnation from a being that loves me, that created everything that we have. So, I love how Christians they end everything with "God bless you" when they know that you do not believe in that truth, and the hypocrisy of that just irks me to no end. But that's what I believe. I mean. And again, the entire time, as I said in my opening statement, was there ever any evidence introduced by Sai at all that convinced you that there is a God? All he did was try to go back and redundant, how do you know, and just asserting things over and over again with confidence does not make them true. And he didn't my answer of believing. No, he doesn't like my answer of I believe, so therefore he just will continue to assert that I'm making knowledge claims, even though I've told him I'm not.
All right, we're going to end the show. I'm going to let the people know where they can find you or your website on the social media.
Philosophy Man 76.
And also, yes.
My website is www.proofThatGodExists.org. And just for the people listening, all these things that Matthew brings up, I could answer them, and I'd be happy to answer them. Maybe I'll engage him in the comments of some of his videos. But I just want to expose the folly of his view. But we have answers to all these other things that he brings up, and I'd be happy to engage anybody who would care to email me.
Yeah. Okay, well, today, was definitely a great show. I'd like to thank my special guests, Matthew and Si, for being on the show and bringing their knowledge forth on this particular show. All the callers out there that called in and that's listening right now, I want to thank everyone. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care and have a blessed one.